Welcome to episode 33 of the Hoop Threads podcast here with DeMatha and Niagara legend Daryl Green. How's it going, Daryl?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Thanks for the generous intro.
Hey man, it took some doing to get this going. I had to reach out to your agent. We had to get you a wardrobe change here, a lot of stuff. So glad to get you going on the pod. So let's talk about the beginning. So talk about your intro to the game of basketball and your career at DeMatha.
My intro, it started at about 5 or 6. I had two older brothers. My oldest brother Matthew and my second oldest brother Quentin. They used to play outside all the time. They just played with their friends. They're 5 and 6 years older than me. So my goal early was to keep up with them. It wasn't to make the NBA. It wasn't to go to college for free. It was just to get outside and be able to play on the same courts my older brothers were playing on. And at first I was a pest. They didn't want me out there, like a little brother messing everything up. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't tough enough. Like it was bad early. But once I started to get better, my oldest brother started to let me go out there with them. We used to play 2-on-2 against guys his age. And then we started winning. And once that started happening, I think I was a blessing to him because he was winning a lot with me on his team.
Gotcha. So talk about how you ended up at DeMatha, because the local public school definitely wanted you for sure.
Yeah, the local public school was not DeMatha. It was Largo High School. The great Lou Wilson was the coach. And we're cool now, but Lou was kind of mad at me early when I made that decision. But it's funny, I didn't know that much about DeMatha. I was playing for Kettering Largo Boys and Girls Club. I was doing pretty well then as a young guy, and I played 2 years older than me. So I always played against like better competition, guys older than me. And I think me playing against my brothers at a young age helped with that. So I finally played my age group, and I don't even know who it was, but someone came to the game. They saw me playing. They spoke afterwards, told me, my parents to come and like check the gym out and everything. And I was like, all right, cool. So we went, we checked it out. We checked out a practice they were having, and the gym wasn't big, so it wasn't like you walk in and just like, wow, this is amazing. This looks like Duke, or it looks like the DeMatha gym of today. It didn't look anything like that. So what kind of got me was Coach Wootten, like his demeanor and the way he was talking to the team. And he was mic'd up before I even knew what that was. So he's talking soft and his voice is blasting through the gym so he doesn't have to yell. And that's probably one reason he never yelled, because he didn't have to. Like so it was just different, man. And it just seemed like he was a kind of even keel coach. The guys were working hard in practice. He was a really nice guy. And I started to hear stories about, the history of DeMatha and stuff like that. And once I did, that kind of intrigued me to want to be somewhere where I wanted to be great. And there's been great players before me.
Talk about playing with two NBA guys and sharing a backcourt with Joe Forte and Keith Bogans. Talk about some of the patience that you had to go through, as a player, kind of biding your time, and then just performing in those limits. Kind of talk about your role and how that evolved during your career at DeMatha.
It was cool. It's like I feel like, and sometimes I try to get this across to the kids today. Like, you never want to be just by yourself. Like, you can be as good as you want to be, but you don't want to be a superstar and you're playing with a bunch of people that can barely dribble. Like, you want to be able to play with other great players, because that's how it's going to be. Like, if you want to play in the NBA, you're going to play with other good players. So, like, it's good to learn that type of skill early, where you're not a selfish player. You're not just me, me, me. You learn how to be team oriented, because you have other guys that can produce. And on the flip side, it's great for practice, because now you're getting challenged every day. Like, you can't slack one day, because if you do, somebody's talking trash afterwards. Like, I don't want to hear Keith telling me nothing, or Joe. Like, we're going to talk trash to each other. So you don't want to lose anything. You don't want to lose a shooting game, free throws, 5-on-5. So it helped keep that competitive edge. And I think it helped all of us, really, because we knew we had to bring it each and every day.
Talk about that special year. I believe it was your senior year that you guys went
Mhm.
34-1 and won the WCAC, or your conference championship, not WCAC. Talk about that year.
Yeah, man. That was a good year that we should have been 35-0. That I know some people would love to say they were 34-1, and that's a great year, but
Yeah.
we wanted, I mean, like everybody that goes to DeMatha, you want to be great. And that would have been one thing that we would have had together, being an undefeated team, because there hasn't been many. And but it still was, man, it was a special year. We did really well. We won everything. We won the WCAC, we won the city title against Anacostia. We just had a really good year. We had a good team. And the guys liked each other. I think that probably was the biggest thing for us. As much talent as we had, it wasn't anybody that was just, all right, this got to be about me. Like we all were just all about winning. So whatever we had to do, and people won't believe it today, but like I was eager to play defense. I'm like, I ain't letting somebody score on me. Some people might not believe that as they met me later on down the road, but definitely in high school, it was a sacrifice, man. But you're willing to do that with the type of brotherhood that DeMatha breeds, and that's what we had. So it made it easy for all of us to adjust to whatever role Coach Wootten had for us.
So in a before a specific matchup with Anacostia, there was definitely a lot of talk pregame. I'm sure during the game too, that they're tougher than y'all, they're more physical. Talk about that narrative with not only WCAC kids, but definitely with the Matha kids that we're not tough, we're not physical. You can get in our head. Kind of talk about that and kind of how you guys overcame that day.
I mean, that's definitely a stigma that people put out there that DeMatha or just private school kids, period,
Hmm.
are softer than kids from the city or whatever. So us playing against Anacostia, that's all people thought. Man, they're gonna rough them up. They're gonna be tougher than them. DeMatha's not gonna want to fight back. Like, and they don't really know the type of kids we were. Like none of us were just in mansions with butlers or anything like that, like kicking our feet up because life was sweet. Like it was nobody that was gonna come on that court and that was gonna rough us or be tougher than us or want to fight and we didn't. Like whatever was gonna happen, we were gonna do it and we were gonna do it together. And we kind of wanted to send a message in that game, like, yeah, we had a private school, yeah, it's DeMatha, but we just as tough as anybody else out there, if not tougher. Most times we are tougher, but it's just something you overcome. You don't really mentally let it get you down, but you use it as motivation. And we always wanted to prove we were better than somebody else, and we were going to prove our point. And I think anybody that watched that game against Anacostia will say there's no way that Anacostia is tougher than DeMatha.
You played for, legendary coach Morgan Wootten in the Basketball Hall of Fame at DeMatha. Talk about, maybe some of his motivational techniques, what made his teams great, how he was able to get the best out of his players, kind of talk about playing under him.
It was awesome, man. Coach Wooten I mean, you hear it wherever you go. He's a great guy. And I spoke earlier about the practice I went to when he wasn't yelling. Like my whole time at DeMatha, he was the same way, but he was more of a mental guy. Like he knew how to kind of push your buttons to get you to react without yelling. So, I mean, it's been times, and I've told this story before, we might be winning or losing, whatever it is, but we're getting out rebounded. And instead of him coming in and calling us soft or saying you need to get tougher, blah, 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 he's just like, you know what, guys, like just do me a favor. I know these guys are really big and strong and they might hurt you, but if you can just box out for me, like that'll be like he'll say little stuff that would challenge your manhood almost. And you're looking at him like, man, the dude's not tougher than me. And we'll go out and win by 30, 40 points, all because he challenged us and called us soft without calling us soft. So it was like little things like that. But then it's on the flip side where if you're going through something in life, you can sit there in his office and he'll talk with you. You know what I mean? And it's not like he's gonna judge you or he's gonna go run and tell other people. But he was more than a coach. Like he cared about people. And I think that's the biggest thing with DeMatha and with Coach Wooten now, with Coach Jones. Like just you genuinely care about people. You want to win games. We want to be the best, but I think DeMatha is what it is because of the heart of the people that's there.
Last question before we move on to talking about Niagara. What is this era missing most when compared to, the area, the environment that you were raised in the game, when you were playing at, as a youth at DeMatha, what's different about maybe the style of play, or maybe how the game is played, or the attitude, mentality. Talk about that.
Um, this era now is super talented. I would say they're really athletic, stuff like that. But what's missing is a mental toughness with them. A lot of times kids will grow up and they're better than their peers. So they kind of get catered to. And these kids aren't used to being told no. These kids aren't used to just somebody kissing their butt and you getting your way. So a lot of times when they come later on, say even in high school, when you haven't heard anybody tell you no, or a coach just let you do whatever because he's trying to win and he doesn't want you to be mad and leave his middle school or AAU team, it kind of sets them up because now when you're being held accountable, you don't like it. Like it doesn't feel good. Dad, I don't think I should be here. And mom and dad is like, yeah, I don't like how they treating you. I don't think you should be here either. So it's caused like this era to run and to flee and to not fight through adversity. I think that's something that's hurting them right now. Like whenever they run into that wall or they run into any challenge or adversity, the first instinct is to leave because I know somebody else wants me. But I tell parents and kids all the time, if you decide to go somewhere, like you went there for a reason. And I'm sure you had your pros, your cons, you sat down, you mapped it out. So now one bad incident or one time where you're not the star on the team, you shouldn't let that make you now leave so I can be a star somewhere else. Like you're gonna be challenged. College, they're gonna challenge you. Coaches aren't gonna even give you as many chances you will get in high school. So I think this era needs to be more mentally tough. The parents need to be a little more realistic and let the coaches coach. Like if I send my son to you, I can't be questioning every move you make every time we play a game, or my son isn't playing good, or he's not playing enough minutes. And a lot of time those car rides home, man, they mess them up because they're telling the kid everything their teammates didn't do right, everything the coach did wrong, instead of having the kid really look and say, all right, look, this is what I need to do to get better. This is what coach said I need to do to get on the floor. So the mental toughness part for me is the biggest difference because we weren't just handed stuff. We had to work, and we had to work against other good people. Like you just mentioned, Keith and Joe, who are two of the greatest people to play at DeMatha. Like I could have left and went to Largo and be like, oh man, everybody talking about them. Or you're going to compete and show that you're just as good as them. But they don't really like to do that. And then like the friendship piece for them causes them to shy away from competition, whereas they should be really going at each other because now you're making yourself and your friend or your brother better. So the mental toughness and the competitive piece, I think, is what's a little different between my era and this era now.
Yeah, on that interview, with on the Lions Den with Ray Lyons, you were talking about that some of the advice that your dad shared, and you were talking about thinking about leaving, and you like I know that I can play, I know that I'm better than some of these guys, and your dad was like, well, then prove it. Like what are we talking about?
That's the only. I mean, you can say what you want, but until you actually prove you are better, like it means nothing. And I was looking at him to be like, yeah, man, you are better. Let's go. But he was the exact opposite. He was like, well, if you better, show me. Show them that you're better. And that's what I had to do. And yeah, I mean, it worked out for me, not just in basketball, but in life. Like it teaches you not to quit because that's the easiest thing you can do, man.
Yep.
Everybody can do that. Like it's no problem, no questions asked. Can you quit? Yes. Everybody can quit, but can you fight through something? Can you overcome adversity? Like that's where you start to separate yourself from everybody else, and everybody can't do that.
Let's talk about your first year at Niagara under Coach Joe Mahalik. I hope I didn't mess up that.
Yeah, that's cool. You good.
Talk about, that was his first year there. You were his first recruit. And you came in, all, kind of same situation all over again. Alvin Young and Jeremiah Johnson were both playing ahead of you, both senior guards.
Both really good.
Yeah, both averaging double digits. Talk about kind of playing behind them and kind of starting all over again at the college level.
Yeah, it was. I'm not gonna say it was tough, but it wasn't as tough because of what I went through at DeMatha.
Hmm.
So when Coach Wootten came to me, and I'm definitely gonna get to Niagara, I got you. But when Coach Wootten came to me and talked to me about being the sixth man for the team and being the glue guy and what that would mean for me and what it would mean for the team, I didn't really understand it at first. And like you mentioned, I wanted to leave. Like I was just like, nah, this is BS. Like I'm good enough to start, and I should be starting. I was starting. Like I didn't do anything to mess it up, but the way he explained to me the dynamics of a team and what a coach looks for a team and energy off the bench and being able to pick this person, like when he explained it to me, it kind of helped me transition into college. I still had that same hunger and competitiveness to, man, I'm a freshman. I don't care. I still want to start. But I understood when I didn't start because I wasn't good enough at the time. Like they were really good. It wasn't like I went and I pouted. Man, I worked my tail off. When we didn't have practice, I was in the gym. When we didn't have practice, I was in the weight room. Like I did a lot of stuff on my own to prepare myself because I wasn't just in that moment. Like I didn't get in my feelings because it was two good people in front of me. I competed against them every day.
Hmm.
And they'll tell you, I know I helped them be better because it wasn't no way I was on back down. Me and Jeremiah almost fought all the time because neither one of us would back down. And you calling me a freshman was, and you're a senior, that doesn't mean anything. We on the court. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So like that kind of stuff, it helped me. Like those two guys, and then they became like brothers to me because they still took me under their wing because they knew like he's gonna fight with us. Like this dude is tough. He's not gonna back down. We might as well just try to bring him up to speed because we're not gonna get rid of him. So that was just my mentality. Like go in there, fight for whatever I want, and learn as much as possible. And because of those two, it kind of really helped me transition my sophomore year.
you know, talk about, real quick, that sophomore year, I think you averaged either at 20 or around it, 20 per game. And, you're thinking about maybe looking at the NBA process and what that would look like. Talk about that. And then the following year, the difficulty of going through, having an injury that you had to sit out for the first time, kind of what it taught you and how it helps you work with the athletes that you work with today.
Yeah, that sophomore year, I had a really good year. Myself and Demond Stewart, he transferred in from Mercyhurst. He's from Rochester. So my freshman year, he sat out. So all he did was practice. And then my sophomore year, he was able to play. And it was him and I in the backcourt. And man, it was some tough backcourts, in college at that time. But I don't think it was two people that could compete with us. I mean, I'm sure other people feel the same way, but I'm talking now. So I don't think it was anybody that could compete with Demond and I. And it just like his competitiveness, how good he was, how good our team was. We had a really, really good year. And we got a lot of attention. We were in magazines and stuff like that. And my brother and some of his friends are like, man, this might be your time. Like they giving me nicknames. They saying hi. They my bodyguards. How we gonna do this? And then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, dang, I told my mom I was graduate. And like if you know me, you know like my mom is it. Like me and my dad are really close. Like we're all close. But if I tell my mom something, I'm gonna at least try to do it. You know what I mean? As best as I can. And graduating with a degree was, really, really on my mind. And it wasn't like I was projected to be a lottery pick, at the time. I just know how good I was and some of the guys that were going into the draft. And I felt like I was just as good as them, but I ended up, well, because I'm here now, but I ended up going back to school. And the next year, man, I got hurt. And that was tough. I never had to deal with sitting out or I'm walking around in the boot. I'm angry. I'm snapping at people and wanting to fight. It was just the exact opposite of how I would coach someone to handle adversity in the beginning. And because I was young, I just didn't know. I'm away. My family not there. Like I was mad because I know the goals and the aspirations our team had, and I know the goals and aspirations I had for myself that year. And to me, that was my showing the NBA this sophomore year wasn't a fluke. I'm ready to join y'all after this year. So going through that, it stressed me out. I was down. I probably was depressed. I guess like I was just out of it, and there was a time where Coach Mahalik just sat down and he was like, man, you might need to talk to somebody. Like this not you. And, you know, him and I had that conversation, and I even went home for a time I just had to regroup. And, you know, again, my parents were there and they like, I get it. Like, you're going through a lot. This is different, but you're on a team. Like, so we understand. We want you to play. You can't play, but now you're not a part of a team because you yourself are injured. Like, that's selfish. And again, I'm looking like, golly, like, can I get some parents that's just going to go with the flow? Like, give me a hug and be like, yeah, son, come on, man, just chill with us. Like, where are these people, man? Like, but hey, they was just like, no, man, like, great, we're happy we see you. You're happy you're home. You're not homesick no more. All right, just go. Like, get out of here. So I went back and I talked to coach. I talked to the team. I apologized to everybody, which was tough in itself because, like, when I was younger, like, that pride was just like, man, I don't. What if they say, and then I'm gonna say, like, I had everything planned out in my mind, and it was just like, finally, DG, like, come on, like, let's, you know what I mean? Like, we didn't miss a beat. So that kind of helped. And then I was the biggest cheerleader for them. Like, I wanted everybody to be successful. And my anger was never towards any of them. It was just the situation, but it's always a right and wrong way to handle it. Like, even if you're upset, you're disappointed, if you're a part of a team, like, you deal with that later. When you're with that team, you're with them, you're cheering them on, you clapping it up. You need to get them water, you get them water. And then if you got to deal with your emotions when you're alone in your dorm, okay, fine, you do that. But like, that's what really taught me how to be, I guess, a better teammate, I would say, and just to not focus just on what's going on with myself.
So you finished up in Niagara, and then you played overseas quite a bit in a couple different countries. Give me your best overseas story.
Oh man, I don't even know if it's some good stories overseas, man. But the best and cleanest one I'll tell you about in Finland is actually a game. We were we were playing. I don't even remember what team, but I was playing for this team called Tarmo. And it was like one of kind of like a rivalry, I guess. And we're going back and forth and back and forth, and we're on the road, and the crowd is going crazy. We talking trash, and some of them yelling in Finnish. I don't even know what they saying, but I'm talking trash right back to them. So the game was intense, and we get up and we got comfortable, and they came back. They went on a run right at the end, and we down two with maybe 5 or 6 seconds left. And because they come down, they score. We don't even call a timeout. The guy throws it in. I run in. I shoot the shot. I shoot a three, and I know it's good because I just know how it left my hand. So I shoot it. The ball goes in, and as my follow through is up, I go down into a bow position at the same time when the ball goes through the net. And everybody just went crazy, man. And it's like, me and the point guard, that was like our thing, man. We practicing that stuff in practice. When we make it, we gonna bow to the crowd. It happened, so it kind of was just like, man, I can't believe this just happened. But I'll never forget it, man. It was a great time, and I had some great teammates in Finland, man. But I think that was my best overseas story, man. The follow through to the bow. I don't know. I might be the only one to ever do it.
Hey man, one of our kids does that. I know exactly where he got it from. All right, so talking about you after that point, you were starting a family. I heard that you actually, your daughter was born, while you were overseas. So talk about coming back and getting that job with the Atlanta Hawks and what you learned at that with that experience, working for an NBA team.
Again, that was Coach Wootten, man. I was coming back, and I had never worked before, so I mean, it's tough when you're an athlete and now you're trying to get into the quote unquote regular world. Like, everybody, like, you don't have no experience. What have you done? I haven't done anything. I played basketball. That's all. Like, ask anybody that knows me, they're going to say basketball. So, like, doing that, I was just trying to figure stuff out, man. I was doing different jobs, but I know I always wanted to be around the game. And just like when I was in high school, Coach Wooten is like, man, if you got questions, just come and ask. And I reached out to him and I spoke, and he I really was just checking on him. And then he started asking me about like what I was doing and what I was trying to do. And I mentioned being involved in sports, like scouting, training, stuff like that. And he told me to give him a little while, give him a few days and make a call, whatever. And he called Danny Ferry. The next thing I know, me and Danny Ferry are emailing each other. And I'm like, man, this dude is like the Godfather. Like, he just get anything done. And I went out, I talked to Danny. It was a formal, kind of informal interview in Atlanta. I drove out with my family, and he called me a few days after I returned from Atlanta, and he told me I had a job, and I was through the roof. I was getting something in the closet. My wife was at the time was sitting on the couch, and I'm talking on the phone, and I'm just like, man, you ain't gonna believe this. And we were happy. I called my parents and my brother, and we had a good time on the phone. We were all excited. Like, I got drafted to play in the NBA, but it was just, it was my dream to get there. And I might not have played, but I knew enough and I learned enough about the game, and I paid attention enough that I was able to, be a scout. Like, I think a lot of times people think it's just, man, just go out there and play and just hoop and just score as many points as you can. But if you can become a sponge of the game and look at the nuances of the game and look at film, there's so much more you can do beyond your playing, because everybody's not going to make it to the NBA. Like, everybody wants to, but the numbers don't even add up for everybody to make it. So you got to be able to do like other little things, just like on the court. Like, everybody's not going to be a scorer. You got to find your niche and find little ways to get yourself included in things. So that's how it happened with me, and it helped me learn to be professional. It helped me learn to be accountable, because we have deadlines, and we got to do this scout. You got late nights, you traveling, you doing all kinds of stuff. So it really, at that time in my life, helped me set like more of a work ethic off the court. Because on the court, I work tirelessly. I don't really care. But off the court, like, nothing else really interests me. So it wasn't a passion or a push or a drive. So that kind of set the tone for me to really lock in and focus on something daily and kind of learn and grow from it.
Were you ever, just because your background as a specialist, as a shooter, were you ever kind of harder on shooters, or you found it easier to scout them as opposed to a different archetype of player?
I don't know if I was necessarily harder, but I definitely got like, it upset me more when shooters did certain things, because it's like, especially if you're a shooter and you make two in a row, why would the third time you shoot a fadeaway three instead of shooting straight up and down like you did on the first two? You know what I mean? Like, little things like that kind of can tell you mentally what people are. Like, if you worrying about how you look when you're shooting the ball and the crowd is like, oh, he made a fadeaway, instead of making 10 in a row the same way, shooting straight up and down like a Ray Allen, a Klay Thompson, somebody like that. Like that would be the kind of things that frustrate me, because I felt like players would hold themselves back. You know what I mean? To kind of blend in, to not be just a shooter, to be an athlete or be a scorer. Like, just be yourself. And that's what I always tell people. Just be yourself. If you're a rebounder, if you're a shooter, if you're just a pass first point, like, none of that matters. Like, even the people I scouted, let me see how you play in your role. You maximize that role. And then that will tell, coaches or scouts, okay, yeah, this is somebody we can have around. This is somebody that's not selfish. Like, the way you play with your limitations and with your strengths tell a lot about how you'll be on the team.
Cool. Let's talk about some of the intricacies of shooting. Because, as you not so humbly, you're a shooter. This is what you do. So, what is the hardest aspect of shooting to get your players to unlearn? Whether that's, a hitch in their shot, or, foot placement or hand placement on the ball. What's kind of a habit that you really typically have to work through?
All of the above. All of the above. Especially when you're talking about, now they're in high school and they're 15, 16 years old. You've been doing something a certain way all this time. Now you got somebody else telling you to do it this way. And in the beginning, because you haven't done it, you're not having as much success as you would want to, or as you previously were having. But it's just getting them to mentally, like, I guess, break down that wall and say, all right, fine, I'm gonna try it this way. And even though it doesn't seem like it's working at first, I'm gonna continue to do it. So I think that's the biggest thing, whether it's with a follow through, whether it's with your body turning, your feet, your foot placement, like with anything, it's just the repetition part of it, just getting them to fight through not going back to what used to work, because you know that's not going to be what takes them far in the long run and for them to reach their goals. So just getting them to trust you enough to know, all right, he does know what he's talking about. And it helps when they start to have that success and they see the ball go in the basket.
To be a great shooter, you have to be mentally tough and come through when it matters. You know, that the mental aspect is very important. You know, it's kind of hand
Absolutely.
in hand with that. What goes into that development? What lessons have you learned about it? And, you know, how have you been able to, sometimes it's difficult if you're a player to just teach the same thing that it's a lot easier sometimes to do than to explain. You know, what kind of
Mhm.
goes into, you know, preparing that mental aspect and, you know, the kids that you work with?
It's a lot about knowing the kid. And I think a lot of times trainers just they get as many kids they can fit on that court, and then they go through the drills, they collect the money, and then the next session starts. But for me, it's like knowing who you're working with, because I feel like once I can reach you on a personal level, now it makes it easier for me to teach you. When you know I'm not looking at you as just, oh man, I just hope he can shoot well so now I can put him on a promo on Instagram. Like, nah, like I don't really care about that. I'm gonna figure out what's going on in life, like what's going on in school. So now we're not just having a follow through, hold your follow through type of conversation. Like I think all of that plays into how a kid develops, because these kids now, like no matter what them or anybody say, like they need to know people care about them outside of basketball. They have enough yes people telling them how great they are, how great you're going to be, but I think just getting to them on that human level and then moving on to the basketball skill part, I think that's what kind of helps me develop them, because once I know you're going to listen to me and you're going to do what I'm asking you or telling you to do shooting wise, I know you're going to be better. So I just need to make sure we get the other stuff together first, and then we'll work on like all of the intricacies of the shooting the basketball.
Hmm. Gotcha. What's like a nuance of training that you think there needs to be more emphasis placed on when it comes to shooting? You know, whether it's footwork, balance, you know, release point, you know, getting it over the rim, you know, aiming for the back of the rim. Kind of give me one thing in that category.
I would say balance and aiming, because most kids, especially the aiming and where you're gonna aim on the rim, because I mean you can go to a team of 10 people, you might say, hey, what do you aim at when you shoot the ball? And 7 of them might not even know, or some of them just say, man, I just shoot, or the front of the rim, or you know what I mean? Like I don't think they've been taught exactly where to aim, exactly how to shoot the same way every single time, because a lot of times, like when you're training so many people, or when you're just like training to train, you're not even looking at how they shoot. Sometimes they might do a move or something and you're not even looking at them. So how can you tell them what you're doing wrong or how to shoot better? Like you really have to zone in and focus on only that. Like where his or her feet placement, how are their body, how are their shoulders, look at their follow through. Like you have to look at all of this stuff continuously. Like you can't just see him one time and then think, oh man, I got it. No, you got to see it. Then you got to see him play in games. Like it's a lot that goes into it. Like I even have some people send me film so I can watch film of them playing. Like it's not easy to just go say, yeah, I'm gonna teach you how to shoot. Come on, just stand here and start throwing the ball up. Like it's a lot that goes into it. So that's why, you know, I'm not kind of shy about what I do or who I am. Like I know how much I put into learning how to shoot and then being able to teach people how to shoot. Like if I couldn't shoot as good as I can, I wouldn't teach anybody else how to do it. But I know the work that I put in to get to where I am, and I can teach anybody how to shoot. I mean, I can teach you how to shoot. I saw the line
You don't
drives,
gotta
you
teach
know what I'm
me. Come
saying?
on. You don't gotta teach me. Come on, DG.
You don't extend your arm up enough, man. I saw you, man.
All right, we'll talk about that off there. All right, so talk about, you know, the advice that you give some of your college trainees about getting the most out of their experience, you know, outside of the game of basketball.
I mean, I just try to tell them to soak up as much as you can, but to focus at the same time. Like, don't just go one track mind. Like, all I'm doing is I'm going to play. I mean, it's great to be focused, but it's like it's life outside of basketball, and there's so many connections you can make outside of basketball just by being you. Like, you already have people's attention because you're on a team. Like, use that to your advantage. Like, you never know what type of connections will come from you being at a certain college and being around certain coaches or even your classmates. Like, don't go in there thinking you're on the team, so I'm better than you because I play. Like, no, like, you treat everybody with respect. You're always nice. You're always cordial. Like, and that's why our guys never have problems. Our guys are just, they're ready all around. And that's not me. That's Coach Jones. That's our whole staff. Like, we focus on building young men to be productive, not just on the court, but outside of the court. So they know we expect certain things. They know we're going to check with coaches about their behavior. We're not going to ask how many points you score. Like, we want to know, is he listening? Is he a good teammate? Like, all the stuff that we preach, we check on that. We make sure you're upholding what people see as a DeMatha young man or a DeMatha student athlete. So that's the biggest thing, man. Respect yourself, respect your family, and respect your teammates.
Let's talk about, how you transitioned from, NBA to, coming back to the area. And, how did you get introduced to Coach Jones? Because I don't think you played under him, right?
No, I didn't play for Coach Jones.
Talk about how you got introduced to him and with Team Takeover.
I knew Coach Jones for a long time. It wasn't like we were super close, but our families knew each other. His cousins grew up in my neighborhood. They were friends with my oldest brothers, so I knew all of them. And like, we'd be in the park playing football, and their older cousin is coming through, so they all happy. Like, so that's when I first met him. And then, as I came back, of course, I was keeping up with DeMatha and what they were doing. And when I had the time, I would come to games and stuff like that. But yeah, that's just like we've known each other for a while, and I had been trying to get the time to get with them. Like, we met probably 3 or 4 times before I even came on staff, and it was just never the right time. My kids were younger, and I mean, he was always open to it. It was just always, if I had the time to do it. And then once I finally did, again, we met. He welcomed me with open arms, and he allowed me to work with the freshmen, which I think was great for me my first year, to come in and be able to work with those guys who were excited to be on the team. They were eager to learn. Like, that was the perfect atmosphere for me, in my first year starting to coach. So, I mean, I thank him for that, man. Some people, they would want to go straight there to varsity and just, yeah, I want to be with it. But I see he had a vision for how he wanted me to develop. And I mean, it worked out for me. I loved every minute of it. Now, some of those guys like Will Reynolds, he was on the freshman team. He's now a senior. Like, to grow and with some of those players, it was priceless. I'm just happy to be back.
Who
And
was
with
your first?
Takeover,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead. And with Takeover, I spoke with Lil Keith first. Carlos he called me, and I think they might have been together, and we were talking about, or they were talking about, and he was like, man, you need to coach with them. And I heard it take over. I wasn't into the AAU thing at the time. I was just doing what I was doing. But we spoke, and me and Keith probably didn't even, Lil Keith didn't even talk that long. We might have talked for maybe 5 minutes, told me where they was gonna be, where they practicing, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna be there, and kind of just went from there. I just started showing up and being around and helping out. And because my thing is, I just want to help kids. So anybody that's down to help kids get better in basketball and in life, and like, you doing it the right way, I'm all in for it. You know what I mean? So that's what they were doing. That's what they were about. And I was like, cool, it'll be an easy fit for me.
You recruit a lot of, the elite players in our program. Who was your first recruit at DeMatha?
Oh man, my memory is bad, man. Oh, because I'm definitely not gonna remember. I don't know, man, but I mean, I don't know. It's been a few of them, but I mean, I think I just feel like we get the best guys. It's not just me
Yeah.
and me being out there. Like Coach Cromer is out there, Coach Vini, like all of us, Coach Sam, everybody is free. All of us are out there. So I just think I don't know, we just find the guys that's not always the obvious pick. Like a lot of times you'll see this guy getting all the attention and everybody's going after him, but then you might have 2 or 3 teammates that's just as good or maybe not as good, but you can see the upward trend year after year as you follow them. And I think those are the guys we kind of hone in on and look for. And again, it's back to Coach Wootten. Like if I didn't go through some of the stuff I went through with him and having to not start and be 6th man and knowing I'm good but I might be coming off the bench, like you start to look for that stuff in the kids that you recruit and the kids that you watch. Like, okay, just because he's coming off the bench doesn't mean he's not as good as the other guys. Like their coach might feel like, you know what I mean? So all of that stuff you went through kind of plays back and it helps us. And it's even helped with some of the decisions we've had to make with DeMatha where we have 6 or 7 guys that can start. You can only start 5 of them. And you know all 6 or 7 want to start. And it's like, but if he could just, and it's like, it's a tough conversation to have. But when you've been through it and you don't have to say, man, it probably feels like this, or you might think this, like, I can tell you from experience what you're going to think, how it's going to feel when the coach comes and tells you whatever he says. Like, I can kind of walk them through it. And I think it's helped a couple times in that situation because I could say, look, man, I know how you feel, but I'm telling you, I went through it. This is what I did. This is what I thought. And that didn't work. But then I did this and I thought this way. And this did work for myself and for the team. So it's, I think it's huge in today's game because it's so much emphasis put on starters that even when you recruit, sometimes they ask, am I going to start? Am I going to be on fire? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I've never seen you play against the people that's already there. Like, how can I tell you what you're going to do? So
I think an underrated part too is there's a lot of the elite kids, especially the elite local kids, that don't want to come to DeMatha because of the incumbent talent that we have, and the fact that they would be, the third guard, or they'd be coming off.
right.
That plays a big role in how we look at kids. So Jones is an incredibly confident guy, to say the least, which is often something that trickles down to his players and his coaches and the team. Talk about how important that is for some of the guys.
Man, it's extremely important because, some kids, they look at other players, and especially if they're good players or good teams, and they might have doubt. And they might be like, man, I don't know if we can stop this guy, or I don't know, this team is really good. But if your coach is telling you, man, there ain't nobody better than you, or they're not going to have a better game plan than your coaching staff is going to put together, they're not going to be more prepared than you, or you're better than them. Like, when you have a coach that's never scared of anybody, that's never going to duck a team, like that kind of carries over to everybody because now you're like, yeah, we can beat anybody. You heard what Coach said. It's just like if you're the little brother or something and you trying to do something with your big brother. This was always me. And your parents finally give you that chance. Tell your brother that I said. I'm like, oh, you want me to tell him that? And now you just got all the confidence in the world. Like, I dare you not do what I said. You know who told my mom just said, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that. Like, y'all should never feel inferior to another team. Your coaching staff will never go into a game thinking you can't win, or we're not good enough, or we're not better, or we're not number one. Like, it's contagious, man. So when you get in situations, it's never a panic. It's never coaches arguing about what we should do. Like, everybody just stays even keel because we always believe we're going to win. And it starts at the top. Like, if your coach has that confidence in himself and in the team and the staff, then there's no way, if you're really locked in and you're all about that team, you're not going to feel the same way and walk a certain way. And sometimes that's what people don't like about us.
That's for sure. Well, there's a lot to pick from there. So, what are some of the biggest little things that they keep kids from getting playing time?
That keep them from getting playing time, I would say when they're not playing. the biggest thing is their body language, their attitude. Like when if you're a starter and I'm on the bench and you make a mistake, I shouldn't be on the sideline. Like, see, that's why he shouldn't be in the game. See, that's why I should be in the game. I think mentally, like them really embracing the team aspect over just themselves. Like we always talk about we over me at DeMatha, and I think that's one of the biggest hindrances because they check out. They feel like I'm not going to play. Coach not giving me a chance to play, so they don't practice well. They don't put in extra work. They're in the gym, practice over, they're gone. Before the gym, they're not showing up early, like stuff like that. And it doesn't cause you to get better. Like the only thing you're doing is being upset at coach for not playing you instead of working as hard as you can to give him a reason to play you. And when you get that opportunity, you got to take advantage of it. Like you have to put him in a position of, I have to have Aaron on the court. Like I don't know what I'm gonna do, but we got to find minutes for this guy. You always want to be the kid in that conversation of the coaches saying we have to figure something out. He's always here. He's always getting up shots early. He's always staying late. He's working on his off day. He's on the bench cheering for the team. He's calling out plays. Like being a good teammate will get you minutes. Being a good teammate will get you opportunities. Just like being a bad one will cut those away from you. And I don't think they understand like it's more than just how you perform one day in a game. So if you have a career day, oh now you should start. No, like consistency is what's key. You have to build that trust, especially if you're a new player. He doesn't know if he can trust you in the big game or not. Like you have to be in that position, but it's small little tests that you pass to prove yourself and to earn that trust. And it's not an easy process. So some kids, it's just mentally they can't handle it.
Let's talk about your coaching style. So I when I'm putting the videos together, a lot of the time it has the music, right? And then when there's a loud moment from the game, it'll pump up the game volume for a second. Most of the time when it does that is because your voice on the bench is getting really excited for a play, or you're yelling at one of the kids. You're definitely a very loud presence, and that's just kind of your style. But the enthusiasm is something that definitely helps, with our bench, with our guys when they're not in the game, and it's something that's definitely contagious for sure. Talk about your coaching style, what you've learned about motivating players and different methods of what's worked, what hasn't worked, from the freshman level to where you're at now.
Yeah, man. I tell myself before games, man, you're not gonna be the loudest one in this gym, man. You gonna sit here and you're gonna relax and you're gonna watch the game, maybe write something down. But I've never been that way. Like off the court, sometimes I can be like reserved or whatever, but on the court, I started as a point guard. And every coach I had told me the point guard has to be the most vocal guy on the court. He has to know where everybody's supposed to be. He has to know every position in the play. So from young, man, that's how I've been. And then it just kind of intensified in college with Coach Mahalik, where he always held me accountable. Somebody else make a mistake and he's blaming me. And I'm like, oh, I did not just turn the ball over. Or I was not just in the wrong spot. And he's like, well, you're the point guard. You're supposed to be there. And if you don't talk, they're not going to talk. So it's always been an emphasis on talking. So whenever I'm on the court, I could be playing pickup. And it's the same way. I'm calling screens. I'm help side. They looking at me like, man, it's pickup, man. What you mean help side? But it's how I'm wired. So when we're playing the game, it's the same way. Like I'm engaged, and that's why I don't write down as much as I should, because I'm so like engaged into the game and making sure people are in the right spots. And like you said, I feel like it's contagious. And if you have a team that doesn't talk, if you have coaches that don't talk, you're really in trouble. So you just got to be patient enough to let them come out of their shell a little bit and start to mature. And it's frustrating. Sometimes I leave with a headache because I'm like, man, I'm yelling more than y'all yelling. Like, I can't keep doing this. But
Yeah.
if you stop, they're gonna stop. So just again, being consistent and being the same way of them knowing what they're gonna get from me, whether I'm yelling at them, which I rarely do, but I try to again just the human side of it. Like if I know that I care about you, I can tell you anything. and you know where it's coming from. You don't have to question it. You don't have to shut down. So that's kind of my style. Like Coach Jones can like go off, and not that he really goes off, but as a head coach, like sometimes they're the ones that mainly go off and they're yelling and they're ripping into the kid. And then I'm that coach that's going to come behind you and I'm going to reiterate what he said, but I might say it in a softer tone and a more like, all right, man, you just got to blah, 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 get together, like whatever. But so that's more of my style. I'm not a yeller. I'm not going to curse you out. And if I do start yelling, like y'all really tripping, like y'all been doing terrible. But that's my demeanor. I'm not a loud guy. I'm a more reserved guy until it calls for that. And same thing with coaching, man. I try to be reserved and as even keel as possible. But when the ball goes up, I feel like I'm playing the game. Like I know I'm on the side and I don't have no jersey on, but and I got a bum knee, but I'm into the game, man. I can't help it.
Let's talk real quick about, a message or one thing that you wish, parents would do differently. Because I know it's something as coaches, sometimes we feel like, parents get in the way of their players, of the players' development. Talk about something that you wish that parents would change up, or something that you like that parents do that you wish more parents did.
I wish the parents would sometimes put in headphones on the car ride home and just let the kid just relax. Because I mean it's always coming from I choose to believe it's always coming from a good place. It's not like the parents want anything bad, but this is their child. They want their child to be successful. A lot of parents want, the attention, which is natural. Like you want that. You want coaches to notice. You want fans to know who your son or daughter is. And I get it. But when they get to a certain point, you just got to trust the coaches that you sent them to develop them and, to bring out what needs to be bring out in their games, in their, their everyday life. Like if you're not going to be on somebody's staff, don't coach them. Be the parent, be there for them. If they want to talk, that's great, because when they get to college, no college coach is saying, hey, mom, I just wanted to call you about John. Nobody's doing that. John better straighten up or he will be able to tell mom what happened when they send him home. Mm-hmm. So like the biggest thing is for parents to let their kids go through the process, go through adversity, all of that stuff now, as tough as it is, because it's preparing them for college. Like it's a reason we don't talk to parents every day and talk about practice. And no, like that doesn't happen. And it's frustrating for them because they're not used to it, but this is what's going to help your young man in the long run. Mm-hmm. And we know that, and Coach Jones has been through it. How many people have been to college and been successful, the NBA, like that shouldn't even be an issue, in my mind. I won't speak for him, but it's like when someone has done it at an elite level and you're sending your child there, not just him, it's other coaches in the country that I'm sure feel the same way, but just let your kids be coached. That's the biggest thing. Love them, support them, be a parent, but leave the coaching to the coaches, because it confuses the kids. And when you stop listening to your coach because now you're listening to your parent, then you're going to have a problem.
One of the last questions that I have for you. So, DeMatha, obviously, one of the most storied programs in the country. Talk about some of the cornerstones of our culture.
Man, it's with scholars and gentlemen. That's the first thing they say. Like with Faith Field, all of that stuff means something in the way we conduct ourselves. Like that's always in the back of our minds during the game, after a game, before the game. Like we never want people to leave a gym and be like, man, them kids was disrespectful. Them coaches were like, that's not what DeMatha was built on. DeMatha is built on doing things the right way, caring about other people, not being selfish, having faith. So it's not like we're weak and you just crumble when things get tough. Like, no, you like your faith filled, meaning you gonna get through this. Like you trust that I have enough inside of me that I can handle any challenge. Like I can overcome any challenge. Like that's how we're wired. And we're not wired to quit. We're not wired to give up on our brothers. We're wired to pick our brothers up. So, I mean, it's just like it's instilled in you. And even the coaching staff, it's not like we go to practice and we never talk to each other again until the next practice or the next game. Like, we're constantly in contact with one another and checking on each other. And I mean, just like us, like I check on you way more than you check on me, but whatever. But I mean, we check on each other. You know what I'm saying? You didn't graduate from DeMatha, so we're pulling
That's
you,
why,
bringing
huh?
you up to speed. You know what I'm saying? But it's just a culture, man. And we set that culture early, and we set the expectation early. And like Coach Jones tells them, like we say it over and over, we don't lower the bar for anybody. If we say you have to be here, like we're not gonna say, oh man, it's tough because he transferred in or he's just a freshman, let's bring it. Nah, you gotta work until you get to our set standard. And I think us not compromising, us not folding to the kids and just holding firm to our beliefs and making them raise to another level and get better, it only helps everybody involved. And it continues to kind of push our culture.
Got you. I want to ask you a fun question, and I got one last one after that. So, build a team of the top 5 shooters, of all time. You can't include yourself. I know you want to, but you can't.
I can.
Cannot.
I cannot. Oh man, so you mean build a top 4? That definitely would be, but whatever. So in high school, you talking about in the NBA period?
I'm talking about NBA period.
I'm gonna go Ray Allen, Reggie Miller, Steph, Clay, and I need one more. Man, my 5th gonna be KD just because that's my people. I'm gonna go KD, hometown.
Yeah, that's a good one. Has there ever? I have to be careful how I phrase this question. Is
Yeah,
there
do
ever
that.
been? Has there ever been a player, at DeMatha? Who's the player that came the closest to beating you in a shooting competition?
I don't know, man, because it's really only as close as I allow it to be. So I don't know if I could say who it would be. Like if I want to just skunk somebody, then I'm going to do that. If I want to make it interesting
Yeah,
to
you got
help
to pick some.
build their confidence.
You're gonna take Justo, Jordan. Who you got?
I don't know. Me and Justin didn't shoot against each other as much. Like Earl won a couple times. Once he used the techniques I showed him, like he
Well,
might have
you
won
won
a
that
couple
green light
times.
gym. Yeah. So last question. You're in 4 Hall of Fames. The conference that you played in Niagara, DeMatha, and the Naismith Hall of Fame. Talk about, someone that's following your footsteps, what they can do to kind of try to achieve some of those same goals.
I would say the first thing is don't make that your goal. Like no, I'm serious. Like I never said, one day I want to be in the Hall of Fame, because now you're chasing that and you're doing things out of the ordinary to get it. You know what I mean? Or you're doing things just to get that you think is going to get you into the Hall of Fame. Like, so you might think if I score 30 a game and my team lose, I scored 30, but they going to know me. So I'm going to be in that Hall of Fame. Like, you can't think like that. You just got to just be about your business, man. Work hard. Trust God. Like, I just work, man. I promise you, I never thought about being in any type of Hall of Fame. So once it happened, it was a shock. And like when Niagara sent me that email, I was like, what? Hall of Fame? Like, I guess, like, that's cool. But, I never thought about it. Now, once it happened, now I'm looking around like, all right, man, anybody else want to call or email me? You know what I'm saying? You heard what happened. But nah, just work, man. Just work and be the best you that you can be. Don't compare yourself with anybody. Don't worry about what somebody else is doing, what accolades they're getting. Just work. And if you're good enough and your character is good enough, people will speak and they'll vouch for you. You won't even have to say anything.
Got you. All right. So the last segment on the pod, as always, I kind of turn it over to you and give you an opportunity to ask me a question if you got one for me.
Oh man, I know you've been around basketball a lot, Aaron. Who is the best? Like really think about it. Like don't just blurt out an answer. You know what I'm saying? Like really think. Who is the best shooter slash hype man to Aaron slash big brother slash most awesome, like whatever. Like just think about who is that person, Aaron?
It's a lot of ground to cover, DG. I don't know.
Hey man, I'm thinking of somebody that we both know.
All right. Well,
No.
I don't want to
I'm
hurt your
joking.
feelings now, but
No. Let me ask you this. Like, so with you not going to DeMatha and not graduating from DeMatha or anything like that, just things you might have heard, is now you experiencing working with DeMatha, is it the same of what you might have heard previously about DeMatha before you got there?
so I think people just, they talk, it is a powerhouse, but people talk about it like it's basically just, the ball is rolled out and, we're more talented than y'all and that's why we win. Like our culture is something that's self-sustaining because the senior class makes sure that the classes below it are doing what they got to do to carry on that tradition. Like, the coach was talking about it when I had him on the podcast. He said, the guys, Markel and them, they learned from Vic, they learned from Jeremy, and Justin and Hunter and Jameer, they learned from Markel and them, and just kind of sustaining that culture. And some of the just the small stuff, like if you miss a layup, you got to do 10 push-ups. We do that even at the freshman level. And just kind of the level of competition that, at some points coach says you literally got to earn your gear. Like we're not giving you guys shoes if you're not even, up to a certain grade point average as a freshman. And he's serious about that. And he had, I mean, we have every Nike thing under the sun. I mean, I'm wearing something right now, but he
Right.
he has no problem holding individuals accountable if they're disturbing the flow, and if they're contributing to any distractions. And just the other thing that I've noticed is just it's kind of like, I mean, this sounds crazy comparing us to Kentucky, but Kentucky dudes that go to the NBA, they're averaging 9 points a game at Kentucky, Anthony Davis, and they go to the league and he's averaging what, 25. At
Mm-hmm.
DeMatha, I think because we have such a talented roster every year and they collectively sacrifice so much, when they go to the next level, it's kind of like all right, like I've been training, for doing this sprint for 5 years, and all right, now I finally get to sprint. Um, and you can kind of see, how a lot of their games take off. Jameer Young, was talent wise maybe, a third best player, on those teams, but immediately goes to UNC Charlotte and is killing, average 17, 18 a game his freshman season. And I'm not trying to take anything away.
Way better than people give him credit for.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think just, the way that culture just prepares you for the next level and kind of keeps you going. There's been several kids that, I talk to and they're like, yo, they do more scouting at DeMatha and more game preparation than I do at the college level. And, some of these kids I'm talking to are at the D1 level. So
Right.
it's a real culture that kind of, like I said, it sustains itself because it's not just coach holding people accountable, it's the captains holding the freshmen accountable. And the all the best players on varsity are staying to watch JV and they're staying to watch freshmen and support those guys along the way. So it's been a great learning experience for sure. It's something that I'm definitely taking away a lot of good nuggets from. So anyways, that's all that I
Hey,
got.
that's a good answer, man. That's a good answer. And before you go, in
Yeah.
your answer, you touched on something about like the seniors holding guys accountable, and that's big for us when you have Justin and those guys like going against Earl and them, and then the next year Earl and Hunter do really well, and Earl is going against Jordan and Tyrell in practice, and like he might be dominating some days, but now you fast forward, Earl graduates. Now Jordan and Tyrell have taken a huge jump. Now they're the guys that's competing and beating up on AJ, who's a freshman, Jaden, who's a freshman, like, and all it does is get people better. Like even with E and having Jameer and Josh in front of him, like it causes you, if you're really a competitor and you're really trying to win and get to the next level, you're gonna grow from that. And it's players that don't play And I try to tell them, just go through it, because once you get through you're beaten or this guy being better than you and getting the best of you in practice, it's going to be your turn to now take a freshman or a sophomore and you're dominating every day in practice and he don't know how he can stop you from scoring. Like, those are the things we kind of try to breed, and we get good kids, man. I think that's what makes DeMatha run. We have really good kids, they have really good families, and like they buy in, and it gives everybody a chance to grow, and it doesn't stop when two really good players leave, like Earl going to Miami and Hunter killing at Michigan. Like, both of them, Earl struggling because of injury, but he set the tone. Like, people know who Earl Timberlake is. They know how good he is. They know how good Hunter Dickinson is. But for these guys who people didn't really know or count it out, like, man, DeMatha gonna be down, to get to number one in the nation, like, that says something. And it's not just, oh man, they got a rack of top. No, it's been building. Like, these guys have taken their lumps, and like you said, now it's their time to sprint, and they're ready to sprint. And that's what we do, like, on and off the court. And it's not just they're taking jumps on the court. You look at GPAs are going up, like, as they mature, as they embrace that culture, man, they just, like, the sky's the limit, and they excel once they buy into it.
It's cool to see too. Coach has made it a point, I think, with a lot of the guys that are on staff. I mean, you're on staff, you played at DeMatha. Austin Freeman was Coach's first big recruit at DeMatha. You got Banks played point guard here. KT played here. I think that's Free, played here as well. I noticed
Coach Cromer.
Vini Cromer. One thing I want to mention was we were just talking about the freshmen, and there was a moment where one of the freshmen, I'm not going to name him, but one of the freshmen got dunked on like 3 times in one practice, and it was because he was contesting the shot, and he came to the sideline, and Austin Freeman looked at him and said, "Don't you stop like going at that dude. Don't you stop.
Absolutely.
Them dunking on you doesn't matter." And that kind of speaks to the culture that we've established there, that was started by Coach Wootten and sustained by Coach Jones. But let the people know, where they can find you on Twitter and all that. Get at you at Green Light Shooting and all that.
Oh man. Instagram, Green Light Shooting, DG franchise, Twitter, I don't even know it. I think it's DGreen11. Yeah, DGreen11 on Twitter, man. But I'm just here to help the kids as much as possible. It's a great thing to be able to be around like-minded people that all they want to see is kids be successful. So that's from Coach Jones to the staff to you, like, everybody. Like, it's no place like a DeMatha to me where you're gonna get the competition, the school, the family atmosphere. Like, you get everything at a high level, on every level, and it's just a great place to be. I mean, I'm blessed to be here. I'm excited about it, and I appreciate you taking time out to speak to me about it.
Anyone that's about to follow DG on social media, prepare to be motivated every day. There's gonna be some gospel music in there. It's gonna be some fitness.
Man, you putting pressure talking about every day, man. Let me get a day off, man. Let me get a day off.
All right. Well, I appreciate the time, DG, and I definitely want to thank you for all of the mentorship and support. Just being in my corner from day one of DeMatha has meant a lot to me for sure. So appreciate that.
All good, brother. All good.
All right. You have a great day, DG.
All right, man. You too.